I still remember the way the crystal chandeliers caught the light that night, how everything seemed to shimmer with an almost aggressive perfection, the kind of perfection that costs more money than most people see in a lifetime. I was standing in the grand ballroom of the Ashford estate, clipboard in hand, checking off final details for what was supposed to be the wedding of the century. Marcus Ashford, tech billionaire, was marrying his longtime girlfriend in 3 days, and I was the event coordinator making sure every single detail was flawless. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have possibly known, was that in 72 hours, I would be standing in that same ballroom with 2 police officers, watching Marcus's carefully constructed world begin to crack. That moment, that decision to make the call, it changed everything, not just for him, but for me. Because sometimes the people who try to destroy you end up showing you exactly who you need to become. I had been working in high-end event planning for almost 8 years by then. I was 34 years old, living in Manhattan, and I was good at what I did. Really good. I had coordinated weddings for celebrities, corporate events for Fortune 500 companies, charity galas where a single table cost more than a car. My life was my work. I woke up at 6 every morning, went to the gym for an hour, grabbed coffee from the same place on Lexington Avenue, and spent my days making other people's dreams come true. It sounds romantic when you say it like that, but the truth is, it was exhausting. Beautiful, expensive, exhausting work. I had known I was gay since I was 16, but I didn't come out until I was 23. Even then, it was quiet. I told my parents over dinner at a restaurant because I thought a public place would keep things calm. My mother cried. My father didn't speak to me for 6 months. Eventually, they came around, sort of. We had an unspoken agreement that we just didn't talk about it. I didn't bring boyfriends to family gatherings. They didn't ask about my personal life. It worked, in the way that broken things sometimes still function. In my professional life, I was even more careful. I never hid who I was exactly, but I didn't advertise it either. I wore nice suits, kept my hair neat, spoke in the confident, slightly formal tone that wealthy clients expected. I was professional, polished, safe. Most of my clients probably assumed I was straight, and I never corrected them. It was easier that way. Easier to just focus on the work, to be the invisible hand that made their events perfect. Marcus Ashford came into my life through a referral from another client. He had made his fortune in artificial intelligence, something to do with predictive algorithms that I didn't fully understand, but that had apparently made him $3.7 billion by the time he was 42. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of tan that comes from owning a yacht and the kind of confidence that comes from never hearing the word no. His fiancée, Victoria, was a former model who now ran a lifestyle brand. They were exactly the kind of couple you'd see on the cover of a magazine with a headline about power and beauty. Our first meeting was at his penthouse overlooking Central Park, the entire top floor of a building where apartments started at $20 million. I remember walking in and trying not to let my face show how overwhelming it was. Floor-to-ceiling windows, art that I recognized from museum catalogs, a view that made the city look like a toy. Marcus shook my hand firmly. His palm was dry, his grip just slightly too strong. "Victoria tells me you're the best," he said. "I want the best. Money is not an issue. I want this wedding to be something people talk about for years." I smiled my professional smile. "That's what I do, Mr. Ashford." "Marcus," he corrected. "We're going to be working closely together. No need for formality." Victoria was warmer, easier. She showed me her Pinterest boards, her fabric swatches, her vision of a garden wedding that somehow also felt modern and elegant. She wanted white roses and gold accents, and a string quartet for the ceremony, and a DJ for the reception. She wanted magic, she said, and I nodded and took notes, and assured her I would deliver exactly that. Over the next 2 months, I met with them probably 15 times, sometimes together, sometimes separately. Victoria was involved in every detail, but Marcus controlled the budget, and he made it clear that he expected perfection. He would send me emails at 11 at night with questions about table arrangements or lighting. He called me on Sundays to discuss the wine selection. He was demanding, but I had dealt with demanding clients before. I thought I understood him. The Ashford estate was 3 hours north of the city, a sprawling property that had once belonged to some robber baron in the 1800s. Marcus had bought it 5 years earlier and spent millions restoring it. The main house had 23 rooms. The grounds included formal gardens, a lake, and a private chapel. It was the kind of place that made you feel small, that reminded you there were people in the world who lived in a completely different reality. I arrived on the Monday before the Saturday wedding to oversee the setup. My team of 12 people would be working around the clock to transform the estate into Victoria's vision. Florists, lighting technicians, caterers, musicians, all coordinating through me. I had done this 100 times before, but something about this one felt different. Bigger, more pressure. Marcus was there when I arrived, standing on the front steps in jeans and a white button-down shirt, looking more relaxed than I had ever seen him. "Welcome to my home," he said, spreading his arms wide. "Let's make some magic." The first 2 days went smoothly. The florists installed thousands of white roses. The lighting team set up chandeliers in the garden. The caterers tested recipes in the estate's massive kitchen. I was everywhere at once, checking details, solving problems, making sure everything was perfect. I barely slept. I lived on coffee and adrenaline and the satisfaction of watching something beautiful come together. Marcus was around constantly, watching everything. He would appear suddenly while I was directing the placement of tables or reviewing the timeline with the musicians. He would stand close, looking over my shoulder at my clipboard, asking questions. His presence was heavy, demanding attention even when he wasn't speaking. On Wednesday afternoon, I was in the garden directing the installation of an arch covered in roses when I heard Marcus call my name. I turned to see him walking toward me with another man. This other man was probably in his late 40s, with gray at his temples and an expensive watch catching the sunlight. He had the same kind of confidence Marcus had, the ease of someone who had never worried about money. "This is David Chen," Marcus said, "my business partner and best man. David, this is the man making all of this happen." David shook my hand. His grip was gentler than Marcus's, his smile more genuine. "I've heard great things," he said. "Marcus says you're a miracle worker." I laughed. "I just pay attention to details." "That's what miracles are made of," David said, and something about the way he said it, the warmth in his voice, made me look at him more carefully. He was handsome in an understated way, smile lines around his eyes, a small scar on his chin that made his face more interesting instead of less. Over the next day, I saw David often. He was staying at the estate along with several other members of the wedding party, and he seemed to be everywhere I was. He would appear in the kitchen while I was reviewing the menu with the chef. He would walk through the garden while I was checking the placement of the ceremony chairs. We started having brief conversations. Nothing deep, just small talk about the weather, about the estate, about how beautiful everything was coming together. There was something easy about talking to David. He asked questions that showed he was actually listening. He laughed at my jokes. He had this way of standing with his hands in his pockets, slightly slouched, that made him seem approachable despite the obvious wealth. I found myself looking for him, noticing when he entered a room. On Thursday evening, most of the major setup was complete. The estate had been transformed. The garden looked like something from a fairy tale. The ballroom gleamed. I was exhausted but satisfied, standing in the ballroom and checking items off my list when David walked in. "You should be proud," he said. "This is incredible." I smiled. "Thank you. It's been a lot of work. Can I ask you something?" He walked closer, and I noticed he smelled like cedar and something citrus. "Do you ever get tired of making other people's dreams come true? Don't you want something for yourself?" It was such an unexpected question that I didn't have my professional answer ready. I just looked at him, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes that made my chest feel tight. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. "Sometimes," I said quietly, "but this is what I'm good at." "I bet you're good at a lot of things," he said. And the way he said it, I couldn't tell if he meant something or if I was reading into it because I wanted him to mean something. We stood there in the empty ballroom, and I became very aware of the space between us. About 3 feet, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, far enough that it was still professional, still safe. "I should get back to work," I said, even though most of the work was done for the day. "Of course," David said, but he didn't move immediately. He just looked at me for another moment, and then he smiled and walked away, and I stood there wondering what had just happened. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in the small bedroom I had been given in the staff wing of the house, staring at the ceiling, thinking about David's question. Did I want something for myself? I had spent so long being careful, being professional, keeping parts of myself hidden, that I wasn't sure I knew how to want things anymore. Not real things, not things that mattered. I thought about the last relationship I had been in, almost 2 years ago now. Michael, a graphic designer I had met through work. We had dated for 7 months, and it had been fine. Nice. But when he started talking about moving in together, about meeting each other's families, I had panicked. I had ended it gently, told him I wasn't ready, and he had looked at me with such disappointment that I still felt guilty when I thought about it. The truth was, I wasn't sure I knew how to let someone in. I had spent so long protecting myself, keeping my professional life separate from my personal life, being the version of myself that made clients comfortable, that I had forgotten how to be anything else. On Friday, the day before the wedding, the estate was full of people. The wedding party had all arrived. Victoria's family, Marcus's family, friends flying in from around the world. There were probably 60 people staying at the estate, and the energy was chaotic and excited. I was busier than ever, managing last-minute details, handling small crises, making sure everything stayed on track. I saw David several times throughout the day, always at a distance. He would catch my eye across a room and smile, and I would smile back, and there was something in those exchanges that felt significant, even though they were nothing. Just smiles, just acknowledgement. In the late afternoon, I was in the library going over the timeline for the ceremony when Marcus found me. He closed the door behind him, which was unusual. Most of our conversations happened in passing, in public spaces. "I wanted to thank you," he said, sitting down across from me. "You've done an amazing job. Victoria is thrilled." "I'm thrilled. I'm glad," I said. "That's what I'm here for." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Can I ask you something personal?" Every instinct I had told me to deflect, to keep things professional. But something about the way he asked made me nod. "Are you married? In a relationship?" "No," I said carefully. "I'm focused on my career right now." "Smart," Marcus said. "Relationships are complicated. They require compromise. I've been with Victoria for 5 years, and it's been work. Good work, but work." I nodded, not sure what to say. "David mentioned you two had a nice conversation yesterday," Marcus continued, and something in his tone made me alert. "He said you seemed like a good guy." "He seems like a good guy too," I said neutrally. Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "He is. He's also gay." "Did he mention that?" The way he said it, casual but pointed, made my stomach drop. "No," I said. "It didn't come up." "He's been with his partner for 10 years, Marcus said. "They can't get married legally yet, but they're basically married. It's fine. I don't care about that stuff. But I thought you should know, in case he was giving you the wrong impression." I felt my face get hot. I wasn't under any impression. We were just being friendly. "Good," Marcus said, standing up. "Because I need you focused on the wedding, not distracted. This is the most important day of my life, and I need everything perfect." He left, and I sat there feeling like I had been slapped. The way he had said gay, like it was something to warn me about. The implication that David might have been inappropriate. The assumption that I would be distracted. And underneath it all, the clear message that Marcus had noticed something, had read something in my interactions with David, and was making sure I knew my place. I wanted to be angry, but mostly I just felt exposed, like Marcus had seen something I had been trying to keep hidden, even from myself. That evening, there was a rehearsal dinner in the estate's formal dining room. I wasn't invited, of course. I was staff, but I was there, in the background, making sure everything ran smoothly. The caterers served a 7-course meal. The wine flowed. I could hear laughter and conversation from the kitchen, where I was coordinating with the chef. David found me there around 9 o'clock. "Hey," he said, "can we talk for a minute?" We stepped outside onto a small terrace off the kitchen. The sun was setting, painting the sky pink and orange. It was beautiful, and I was too tired and confused to appreciate it. "Marcus talked to you, didn't he?" David said. I looked at him, surprised. How did you know? Because he talked to me too. Told me to keep things professional. Said he didn't want any drama at his wedding. David shook his head. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause problems for you. You didn't, I said. We were just talking. I know, David said. But he's complicated about this stuff. He says he's fine with me being gay, and maybe he believes that. But there's always this edge to it, like he's tolerating it instead of accepting it. I didn't know what to say. I had known men like Marcus before. Men who claimed to be progressive, but who still made you feel like you were something other, something that needed to be managed. For what it's worth, David said, I enjoyed talking to you. You're easy to be around. And I don't know what Marcus implied, but I wasn't trying to make you uncomfortable. You didn't, I said again. I enjoyed talking to you too. We stood there in the fading light, and I thought about what Marcus had said, about David having a partner for 10 years, about how they couldn't get married legally, about how even wealthy, successful men like David still had to navigate a world that didn't fully accept them. I should get back, David said, but I hope after this is over maybe we could stay in touch, as friends, if you want. I'd like that, I said, and I meant it. He smiled and went back inside, and I stood there for a long time, watching the sky turn dark, feeling something shift inside me that I didn't have words for yet. The wedding day was chaos from the moment I woke up at 5 in the morning. Hair and makeup artists for the bridal party, the florist making last-minute adjustments, the musicians doing sound checks, the caterers preparing food for 200 guests. I was everywhere, solving problems, answering questions, making sure every single detail was exactly right. By 2 in the afternoon, an hour before the ceremony, I was exhausted but satisfied. Everything was perfect. The garden looked like a dream. The weather was ideal. The guests were arriving, dressed in their expensive clothes, air-kissing and admiring the setting. I was in the ballroom doing a final check when Marcus appeared. He was already in his tuxedo, looking like he had stepped out of a magazine, but his face was tight, angry. We have a problem, he said. My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? One of Victoria's cousins just told her that she saw you and David on the terrace last night. She said it looked intimate. Victoria is upset. She's asking questions. I stared at him. We were just talking, for maybe 5 minutes. There was nothing intimate about it. That's not what it looked like, Marcus said. And now Victoria is worried that something is going on, that there's going to be drama at our wedding. There's no drama, I said, keeping my voice level even though I wanted to scream. David and I are both professionals. We had a brief conversation. That's all. Marcus stepped closer, and his voice dropped. Are you gay? The question hung in the air between us. I could have lied. I could have deflected. But something in me, something that had been building all week, all year, maybe all my life, refused to hide anymore. Yes, I said. I am. His face changed. Not shock exactly, more like confirmation of something he had suspected. Does David know? It never came up, I said. We talked about work, about the estate, nothing personal. But you're attracted to him, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. I felt my face get hot again, but I held his gaze. That's none of your business. It is my business, Marcus said, his voice getting louder. This is my wedding. I hired you to do a job, not to cruise my best man. The word cruise felt like a slap. The contempt in his voice, the reduction of any human connection to something crude and predatory, made me furious. I have done my job, I said. Perfectly. Everything you asked for, and more. What I am, or who I talk to in my free time, has nothing to do with the quality of my work. It has everything to do with it, Marcus said. Because now my fiancé is upset, and my best man is uncomfortable, and my wedding day is being disrupted by your inability to keep your personal life separate from your professional life. My personal life? I repeated. I haven't done anything. I had a conversation, a normal, friendly conversation. The only person making this into something it isn't is you. We were both standing very close now, both angry, and I could see something in Marcus's eyes that I recognized. Fear. Fear that someone might think he was associated with something he found shameful. Fear that his perfect day might be tainted by the mere presence of someone like me. I want you to stay away from David for the rest of the day, Marcus said. And after the ceremony, I want you to leave. I'll have my assistant handle the reception. I don't want you here." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're firing me? 4 hours before your wedding?" "I'm releasing you from your duties," Marcus said. "I'll still pay you in full, but I don't want you here." Something broke inside me then. All the years of being careful, of hiding, of making myself small and acceptable and safe. All the times I had swallowed my pride and smiled professionally and pretended I didn't hear the casual homophobia, the jokes, the assumptions. All of it came rushing up, and I heard myself say, "No." Marcus blinked. "What?" "No," I repeated. "You hired me to coordinate this wedding, and I'm going to finish the job. You can't fire me without cause, and being gay is not cause. If you try to remove me from the property, I'll call every journalist I know and tell them exactly what happened here. How Marcus Ashford, progressive tech billionaire, fired an event coordinator on his wedding day for being gay. See how that plays in the press." His face went red. "You're threatening me?" "I'm standing up for myself," I said. Something I should have done a long time ago. For a moment I thought he might physically remove me. His hands were clenched into fists, his jaw tight. But then he seemed to remember where he was, what day it was. He took a breath. "Fine," he said. "Finish the ceremony. But then you leave. And if you say one word to anyone, if you cause any kind of scene, I will destroy you. I will make sure you never work in this industry again. Do you understand?" "Perfectly," I said. He turned and walked away, and I stood there shaking, not sure if I had just done something incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. The ceremony was beautiful. Victoria looked stunning in her dress. Marcus looked handsome in his tuxedo. They said their vows under the arch of roses while 200 guests watched. The string quartet played perfectly. The sun shone. Everything was exactly as they had dreamed. I stood at the back, making sure everything ran smoothly, and I felt nothing. Just numbness. Just the mechanical process of doing my job. After the ceremony, during the cocktail hour, I was in the ballroom making sure the reception space was ready when Marcus found me again. This time he had 2 other men with him, large men in suits who I assumed were security. "Time to go," Marcus said. "The reception hasn't started yet," I said. "My job isn't finished." "Your job is finished when I say it's finished," Marcus said. "And I'm saying it now. These gentlemen are going to escort you off the property." One of the security men stepped forward, reaching for my arm, and something in me snapped. Not anger this time. Clarity. I pulled out my phone. "What are you doing?" Marcus demanded. "Calling the police," I said. And I did. I dialed 911 right there, with Marcus staring at me in disbelief. "911? What's your emergency?" the operator said. "I'm being forcibly removed from a property where I'm employed," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I'm an event coordinator, and the client is trying to have me physically escorted out before my contracted work is complete. I believe this is because of my sexual orientation, and I'd like an officer to document what's happening." Marcus's face went white. "Hang up that phone." "The address is the Ashford estate," I continued, giving the operator the full address. "Yes, I'll stay on the line." "You're insane," Marcus said. "You're going to ruin my wedding over this?" "You're the one trying to have me removed," I said. "I'm just protecting myself." The security men looked at each other, uncertain. One of them stepped back. The other looked at Marcus for direction. "Sir, you need to let me speak to him," the operator said, and I handed the phone to Marcus. I watched his face as he talked to the operator, watched him try to explain that this was a private matter, that there was no emergency. But the operator must have told him that an officer was already on the way, because his expression went from anger to panic. He shoved the phone back at me. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your life," he said, and walked away. The police arrived 20 minutes later. 2 officers, one older and one younger, both looking slightly confused about why they had been called to a society wedding. I met them at the front entrance, away from the guests who were now moving into the ballroom for dinner. I explained the situation calmly, professionally. I showed them my contract, which clearly stated that my services included the full reception. I explained that I had been threatened with physical removal by security. I did not mention the gay thing. I didn't need to. The older officer, whose name tag said Rodriguez, seemed to understand immediately what was happening. "And why does the client want you to leave?" he asked. "He says there was a conflict," I said. "But I believe it's discriminatory in nature." Officer Rodriguez nodded. He asked to speak to Marcus, and I watched from a distance as they had a conversation on the front steps. I could see Marcus gesturing, his face red, probably explaining that I was being dramatic, that this was his private property, that he had every right to ask me to leave. But whatever Officer Rodriguez said made Marcus stop talking. The officer's body language was calm but firm, and after a few minutes, Marcus nodded stiffly and went back inside. Officer Rodriguez came back to me. "He's agreed to let you finish your contracted work," he said. "But he wants you to stay out of sight as much as possible. Can you do that?" "Yes," I said. "Thank you. You need to document everything that happened today," he said quietly. "Dates, times, witnesses, what was said. If you decide to pursue this legally, you'll need it." I nodded, feeling something like gratitude and something like vindication and something like exhaustion all mixed together. The reception happened without me. Marcus's assistant, a nervous young woman named Jennifer, handled the visible coordination while I stayed in the background, in the kitchen and the service areas, making sure everything ran smoothly from the shadows. The dinner was served perfectly. The toasts happened on schedule. The first dance was beautiful. Everything was exactly as planned. I saw David once, from across the ballroom. He was standing with a man I assumed was his partner, and when he saw me, his face showed concern. He started to walk toward me, but I shook my head slightly. "Not now. Not here." He nodded and stayed where he was, but I could feel him watching me for the rest of the night. At 11 o'clock, after the cake was cut and the dancing was in full swing, I gathered my things. My job was done. Everything on my contract had been completed. I walked out the front door of the Ashford estate and got into my car, and I sat there for a long time before I started the engine. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. I had just stood up to a billionaire. I had called the police. I had refused to be erased, to be hidden, to be ashamed, and I had no idea what would happen next. I drove back to the city in the dark, and somewhere around 2 in the morning I started crying. Not sad crying, not scared crying. Something else. Relief, maybe, or release. All those years of being careful, of hiding parts of myself, of making myself acceptable to people who would never fully accept me, and I had finally said no. I had finally drawn a line. The next week was strange. I waited for the fallout, for angry calls from Marcus's lawyers, for bad reviews that would destroy my reputation, for the promised destruction of my career. But nothing happened. Marcus paid my invoice in full, probably because he didn't want any documentation of a dispute. He didn't leave a review. He didn't contact me at all. But David did. He called me 3 days after the wedding. "I heard what happened," he said. Marcus told his version, and then I talked to some of the staff who saw it. I'm sorry he did that to you. It's not your fault," I said. "I know, but I still feel responsible. If I hadn't talked to you, if that cousin hadn't seen us, then it would have been something else," I said. Marcus was looking for a reason. He was uncomfortable with me from the moment he figured out I was gay. "The conversation with you was just an excuse." "What are you going to do?" David asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Part of me wants to sue him. Part of me wants to just move on. I'm tired, David. I'm tired of fighting to exist in spaces that don't want me." "I understand that," he said. "But you stood up for yourself. That takes courage. Don't let him make you regret that." We talked for over an hour. He told me about his own experiences, about the casual discrimination he had faced even in progressive circles, about how exhausting it was to always be managing other people's comfort with your existence. He told me about his partner, James, and how they had been together for 12 years now, how they had built a life together, despite the legal and social barriers. He told me I wasn't alone. That conversation, more than anything else, helped me understand what had happened. It wasn't about the wedding or the job, or even Marcus specifically. It was about a choice I had made, maybe without fully realizing it, to stop hiding, to stop making myself smaller so other people could feel bigger, to stop apologizing for existing. I didn't sue Marcus. I thought about it, consulted with a lawyer who said I probably had a case, but in the end, I decided I didn't want to spend years of my life fighting him. I didn't want him to have that power over me. Instead, I did something else. I started being more open about who I was. Not in a loud, performative way, just in small, honest ways. When clients asked about my personal life, I stopped deflecting. When I was asked if I had a girlfriend, I said, no, I'm gay. When I met new people in the industry, I didn't hide. I just existed, as myself, and I let them decide how they wanted to respond. Some clients didn't want to work with me anymore. That was fine. They weren't people I wanted to work with anyway. But other clients, more clients than I expected, didn't care. Or they did care, but in a good way. I started getting referrals from LGBTQ organizations, from couples planning commitment ceremonies, from people who specifically wanted someone who understood what it meant to navigate the world as something other than the default. My business didn't collapse. It changed. It got smaller in some ways, but it got better. I started working with people who valued me for all of who I was, not just the parts that made them comfortable. I started saying no to clients who gave me bad feelings, who made subtle comments, who treated me like I was there to serve their vision without being a full human being. 6 months after the wedding, I got an email from Victoria. She had heard, through mutual contacts, about what had happened. She said she was sorry, that she hadn't known the full story at the time, that Marcus had told her I had been unprofessional. She said she had seen the photos from the wedding, had heard from guests about how perfect everything was, and she wanted to thank me. She also said she and Marcus were getting divorced. She didn't say why, but I wondered if maybe she had started to see the same things in him that I had seen. I wrote back and thanked her for reaching out. I told her I hoped she was okay, that I wished her well. I didn't say anything about Marcus. There was nothing to say. He was who he was, and that wasn't my problem anymore. David and I stayed in touch. We got coffee every few months, talked about work and life and the strange experience of being gay men in spaces that still didn't quite know what to do with us. He and James invited me to their commitment ceremony a year later, a small, beautiful event in their apartment with 50 close friends. It was the first time I had been to a same-sex wedding as a guest instead of a coordinator, and it made me cry in a way I hadn't expected. Seeing two men stand up in front of people they loved and commit to each other, seeing the joy and the normalcy of it, made me realize how much I had been carrying, how much shame and fear I had internalized without even knowing it. I'm 37 now. 3 years have passed since that night at the Ashford estate. I'm still an event coordinator. I still work too much and sleep too little and live on coffee and adrenaline. But I'm different. I'm more myself. I don't hide anymore, or at least I try not to. I'm dating someone, a teacher named Alex, who makes me laugh and who doesn't care about fancy weddings or billionaires or any of the things I used to think mattered. We're taking it slow, but it's real. It's honest. It's mine. Sometimes I think about that moment in the ballroom when I pulled out my phone and called the police, how my hands were shaking, how Marcus looked at me like I was crazy, how scared I was and how certain I was at the same time that I was doing the right thing. I think about all the years I spent being careful, being professional, being acceptable, and how none of that protected me in the end. Marcus was going to reject me no matter how perfect my work was, no matter how polished my presentation was, because I represented something he couldn't accept. The truth is, I had always been gay. Always. It wasn't something that happened to me at the Ashford estate. It was something I had been my whole life, something I had known since I was 16 years old, something I had spent decades trying to manage and minimize and make palatable for other people. What happened that day wasn't about discovering who I was. It was about deciding to stop apologizing for it. Maybe you know this feeling. Maybe you've spent time making yourself smaller, quieter, more acceptable. Maybe you've hidden parts of yourself because it was easier, because it was safer, because you didn't want to deal with the consequences of being fully seen. Maybe you've worked for people who made you feel like you had to earn the right to exist in their spaces. If any of that sounds familiar, I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know that the moment you decide to stop hiding, the moment you decide that your dignity is worth more than someone else's comfort, everything changes. It's scary, it's hard, but it's worth it. If this story meant something to you, leave a like. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about finding the courage to be yourself. And if you want, tell me in the comments where you're listening from, or just write, "My truth set me free," because it does. The truth sets you free, even when it costs you something, especially when it costs you something. You're not alone. None of us are. And that's what makes it possible to keep going.